The following is a conversation between me and Paximus. I had the opportunity to connect with Paximus and elaborate deeply about my thoughts and got to know more about myself as well as Paximus. Hope you guys enjoy this conversation between me and Paximus, and thank you guys for wasting your valuable time with us.
Guys, thank you so much for being here and taking some time out of your day to hang out with us for a little bit. We're going to go ahead and get in this conversation and with none other than Woojin. Thank you, Woojin, for being here. It's good to see you,
Hello.
and thank you for hanging out with us for just a little bit.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. And yeah, I'm really grateful that I have a group of people that are coming by to check this out. So, mad shout out to you guys. My love.
Yeah, and so I gotta ask just right off the bat because, and we did kind of we were about to talk about it, but we didn't quite talk about it. The
Okay.
Sprouties. Well, I'm assuming I know what this is, but I need to ask, where did it come from? Like, how did this how did this form out?
Yeah, so a lot of people come by and then we didn't really have a name of calling ourselves. People were calling, like, we're labeling ourselves as family, like study family.
Right.
But and I think I contributed, like my hair, it's quite wild when first appearance wise. And it kind of looks like a sprout kind of seedling.
Right.
And I also have actually I have a succulent that I started growing on September 9th. That's his birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't know if you could see it,
Oh
but
yeah. Oh,
yeah, it's a beautiful succulent. He's really healthy, and I think for the word sprout, I put a meaning behind it. It's
mm-hmm.
that we all is like everybody is a young sprout. We all start somewhere, and
Mm.
day by day, if we constantly water it and give love to it, eventually it'll grow. And I guess that's like a deeper meaning. But sprouties is just a word to kind of label ourselves as just students, just workers, just interested, and I
Awesome.
thought it would be pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think it catches on, and everybody that is in the chat right now, they're already like putting sprouties and all that stuff. So I think that's wonderful. Thank you guys again for being here. And Woojin, for those people who don't know you, perhaps because this will be available on a podcast afterwards, obviously, but audio podcast. So for those who may not be able to catch this live, could you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do? And kind of how you got to YouTube, how that all started.
Of course. So hello, my name is David. That's my English name, but I go by Woojin, which is my Korean name. I go by Woojin, and you could call me Jin for short. And I currently study economics. I'm 19, and I started doing YouTube mostly because I saw other people do it, mainly James. In my description, I also have a certain, like, couple names that those people kind of strengthened my goals in life
Mm,
and really found deep inspiration. And I think for me, what really mattered was authenticity and resonation. I think that's something that we kind of
mm-hmm,
lack in all social media platforms. I was very addicted to social media. I always talk about it, and that's one of the reasons why I don't really use social media.
mm-hmm,
I don't have like an Instagram that I engagedly active on, TikTok, Twitter. Uh, I just have a really bad history with it personally, but
mm,
maybe I'll be using it because I feel like I have a better sense of grip now.
mm-hmm,
But yeah, that said, my biggest inspiration was James because I saw how he portrayed himself. And if could see that someone is willing to push themselves so hard, uh, I want to do it too. I want to contribute to that and leave an impact. Like recently, I guess this past year, I've been thinking really kind of deeply upon the meaning of life. And
mm,
there really is no meaning. I feel like it's a very subjective thing. There truly is no guideline of how you should live your life, right?
mm,
And for me, I realized that if I could contribute to making an impact, leaving some type of influence positively to make their for their selfish reasons, whatever they may be. I really like viewing humans as like a collective instead of an individual species because then it kind of ensures that we're going to survive as well as make progress.
Mm.
And for me, that was a lot of different people. And the reason why I kind of started, I guess, YouTube was sharing my passion and kind of like my journey and documenting someone's experience who was in my position, because I stumbled across it randomly, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
chance of random, I decided to act upon it, and because I was able to do so, I kind of, I okay, I want to kind of talk about resistance as well.
Mm-hmm.
At first, there is external distractions and internal distractions.
Mm-hmm.
For me, when I first started out, it was really, really hard. I couldn't even sit down for like 10 to 20, 30 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
but I forced myself. The reason, like how I first started, was not even YouTube. I was joining Discord servers, like study Discord servers, and I would pop up my camera, and the sense of that someone's watching you.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of gave me fuel, and I don't know. There's some sense to that belief that someone's watching you that makes you kind of work,
Yeah.
and therefore I started off doing that, increased my intervals slowly. I got up to 45 minutes and then up to 50, and then now I'm doing hour intervals.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, again, my biggest inspiration I would feel like for YouTube wise is James as a human being.
Mm. And so, thank you for sharing that. By the way, now with James and other study streamers, that there's been this kind of community. So obviously, now you're more aware that there's other study streamers out there, and obviously being part of discords, that's kind of how you started. But if you don't mind me asking, what was the turning point for you when it came to social media as the addiction, and how did you get away from it in a practical sense?
So I had a and it's a long story because I was on and off. I didn't I grew up in South Korea for nearly half my life and the other in America.
Mm,
And I lived with host family, so I wasn't with my parents.
mm,
And I was with a lot of like American families, all different sorts of ethnicities kind of growing up
mm-hmm,
in America, at least. And it was at the moment where I had no restrictions, right? Because my parents are in Korea. And therefore I had unlimited access to internet, and I didn't have any restrictions, and therefore I gravitated towards pleasures,
mm-hmm,
and because it was easy, and our brain is designed to crave dopamine.
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it was an on and off for I used this social media called Instagram. I don't know why I structured it that way, but for me Instagram for me
No
Instagram
worries. A preface is always okay.
okay, for me Instagram was very addictive because everybody was using it in school, and as a kid nobody likes being uh, kind of marginalized, and
Mm,
I didn't want to be the one that stood out, and I wanted to fit in every way. So I was on it, and I was consuming, getting to know what other people were doing, kind of adopting the lingo of what the internet culture,
mm-hmm,
and this kind of it played out also into like video games because other people were playing it, and I was like, dude, this is kind of like an escape of reality. I love this. So that's kind of like how my addiction craved and kind of started, and
mm-hmm,
I constantly fed it. I constantly fed that part of me that wanted it because I had no restriction, and I wasn't really aware of the negative consequences it would have.
mm-hmm,
Uh, as for how I stopped, it wasn't on and off. I had to delete my account. I had to remove the app, but I would constantly go back to it, even on the web. It's so easy to use. But I told myself, like, okay, if I want to change as a person, I really need to take this like seriously. And there's been times where I put my kind of like moral, like my integrity on the line, and I've broken it because
mm,
I went back to it. That was how strong it was for me. But just by abstaining from it, I over and over again, I kind of was able to combat it, and now I feel like I have control, And also, I think information is really important. You need to be aware that these programs, these apps are programmed to gather your attention, because attention and time, it's more valuable than money itself. Because money,
Mm-hmm.
it's we put value in money because we know that other people value it.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with time, but time is both individual and other people value it. So it's more important than anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, in that regards, I would say the best way is abstaining and wanting to become a better person inherently.
Well, and I think based even on the live streams that I've been able to visit in your live stream, and just to see the community that you've built so far, you can definitely see a love for the kind of insight that you provide, the kind of self introspective reflection time that you spend, and you were specifically talking about like the meaning of life this last year. I'm kind of curious, at when a thought like that comes up, do you, I mean, is mental health, that being like a big word for you? Is mental health a concern for you when you were going through that, or even as you're live streaming now?
Yeah. So for mental health wise, I never believed in depression and anxiety, even though I had it. I don't really know how to describe mental health. I feel like it's a very subconscious thing that we all deal with it, and
Mm,
everybody has their own ways and their own tools to deal with it. But for me, how I would cope with it was through feeding it even more. So if I had mental health with regarding academic or my social life, I would escape through virtual reality, my video games.
mm,
Uh, but yeah, mental health is a real issue. I think it's like you need those aligned, those social family structure, your friendship, whatever values you have in your life, those need to be aligned before you kind of want to fulfill any other, like this long sitting for long hours even.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, mental health is a real issue, and I think everybody struggles with it. We all have our own demons, our own thoughts that we fight with constantly, and that's something I still struggle with, but
Mm.
I try my best, and we'll get better at it.
Yeah, I think well, in my case, I definitely deal with mental health issues, as the saying, or the title, if you will, goes. With I struggle with anxiety and depression, and I've been clinically diagnosed with panic attack disorder and all these other things, right? But someone actually told me that it's mind over matter. It has a lot to do with your attitude and your outlook towards life. Sometimes it's really difficult to kind of get out of that. What would you say, in maybe the position that you're in right now, to encourage someone who maybe deals with those things of mental health? Like how would they get out of that? How would they, as you're kind of working through it yourself, what are some things that maybe you think would work for them, especially like sitting for long hours? That promotes, if you're not careful, that could potentially promote bad habits. So, what would you say to encourage people who maybe deal with something like that, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think as I said, there is no like one solution. Everybody has a different method of solving that.
Mm,
And I would love to talk with a person who is dealing with this so I get a better sense of how I could help.
mm,
But like I have a little brother. He's in his senior year, and I could really see myself in him because he
mm,
deals with addiction every day, and I've been trying to help him, but it's so hard to change once you're down in the down lows, right? It's
mm-hmm.
really hard to bounce back and trying to climb because there's already such you're so in a divergent path,
Yeah.
right? From where you want to be. And
Mm-hmm.
that start is really hard and being consistent with it.
Mm,
So I would say whatever outlook you have currently, however low it is, you can only bounce back even harder. I really like stories of how like one of my favorite movies, I would say it's Kingsman and Pursuit of Happiness. And Pursuit of
mm,
Happiness, it's a great movie. It's about this guy who he's a dad, and he Will Smith,
mm-hmm.
and he's like a salesperson and he fails. He sleeps in the subway bathroom with his son, but he
Mhm.
rebounds like as hard despite all the mental health. So as you said, I think it's a mindset. It's definitely an outlook,
Mhm.
but just adapting that mindset is really hard if everything that's surrounding you in your environment is tough and harsh.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I wouldn't, yeah, it would be incompetent for me to say that there's a solution, because they need to want to change, and they need to want to
Mm.
change. That's
Yeah.
the first start, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would agree with you on that. Because I think it's the I mean, I've heard this saying before, and perhaps it fits, perhaps it doesn't. But you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink it, and that's really difficult. I've heard that in regards to me though, when it comes to like my depression and anxiety, and um I had to make the choice if I was gonna get myself out of it or not. And I mean, I agree. It's an attitude, it's an outlook, and it's and Woojin, I would actually ask you this question, and maybe it's related, maybe it's not. Um, I was out on a walk with my family this last week, actually every day, and but one day I was talking with my mom, and we were kind of saying how the art of conversation is gone. Like the art of being able to connect with others is gone. And I forget how it started precisely, but I do know that being able to connect with others and kind of growing a community, getting involved is one way that helps you kind of think of others and kind of get out of your own head. I know that was a struggle for me, is kind of staying in the same spot for so long, and over time I started to see that. Now for me, I think the art of conversation, in some ways, in some shape, has gone away because we're so addicted to social media and everything being virtual. Of course, nowadays it's really difficult. But I'm kind of curious to know what your thoughts are on this topic of the art of being able to connect with others. Like, is there a specific thing that comes to mind when I bring that up?
For as for art of conversation, I really like that you had the conversation. It's I would love to hear what type of specificalities you guys talked about.
Mm,
But as for me, I definitely think there there's there's a book that I read last year about how people are, this generation that we're currently living in, because
mm,
we're growing up with all these apps, is that there's people are less sympathetic.
mm-hmm.
And that's really true. Like we have,
Yeah.
well, for me personally, I'm not speaking for everyone, but I feel less sympathetic if I look at maybe a post that's supposed to, appeal to your emotions a little more.
Mm,
I feel less sympathetic as a person, and that's therefore I kind of value more intimacy. I really like having deep talks rather than just surface talk level, like how we said earlier.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh, I think the value of conversations is truly maybe because of social media and all these apps kind of wanting attention for itself and doing anything to kind of spark the chemicals inside your brain.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think there should be more value to, people should emphasize the value in having connections, because as human beings, we are, there's been research back to like how people are, humans as species and all animals are gravitated by community. We need
Mm,
to have that sense of a feeling wanted, and for our reproduction as well.
mm,
So yeah, I think it's really important that we talk about the importance of communication and making sure you express yourself. Even through this podcast, I feel like maybe I'm better able to understand what I'm talking about, because
mm.
a lot of these things may not hit people, but it will help me kind of reinforce my thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, Woojin, I'm actually going to draw maybe a couple of questions from the chat, if you don't mind, during this time. And we're going to actually, so for those of you who are in the chat, thank you again so much for hanging out with us at this time. If you do have a question for Woojin, if you could just put in caps, all in caps, question, and then your question, maybe we could go through that and just be able to ask certain questions. Well, we're going to start off with this question from Sarah Roberts. Sarah, thank you so much for being here. The question is, for me, mental health is a practice. Are there routines and habits um, outside of studying you have that you believe have helped your mental health? That's a great question, Sarah. Thank you so much for that question.
Yeah. So I talk about kind of what I do even outside streaming during most like a lot of my breaks, and that is I run and I do calisthenics and make sure dieting. I think dieting, eating,
Mm,
making sure like you are what you eat. I really think that's true,
mm-hmm.
because after I eat, maybe I overconsume in carbs. I feel horrible after going
Yeah.
on runs
Oh
or
yeah.
even just studying for long times, especially sugar. I think sugar is a really strong drug that people need to be more careful about, and
Mm-hmm.
processed foods as well.
Yeah.
Because if I eat a lot of sugar, then I have a sugar high. I get that spike while I'm studying, and then I crash,
Yeah.
and that really helps with my concentration.
Mm-hmm.
As for mental health, for habit wise, I definitely recommend everybody to exercise. I know maybe that's not like a politically correct thing to say, because nobody says like, oh, you need to exercise, but we all know it's good for us. And there's, for me, I at least I feel really mentally better. And if you feel too comfortable with maybe walking or just running, make sure you understand your boundaries are and try to push a little bit, but just inch by inch, and you will definitely see progress in your mental health.
Mm. I agree, and I think it's key what you just said, and I really truly agree with it. Know what your boundaries are, but then push yourself to that place, and do so in a methodic way, or just do it in a very careful way. And I think when it comes to exercise, we all know it is healthy for us to do that. It helps regulate our bodies. It helps keep our mind clear, stress free in some regard, because we're able to lower those and then get the endorphins going, so there's many benefits to being able to exercise. And I think it's key what you also said about diet and eating the right foods. A little bit about me. I mean, I don't know if you could tell, but I have a little bit of a sweet tooth. So I have, in the course of this last month, decided to revamp the way that I eat, including like processed foods, sugars and things like that. I've literally decided, you know what, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to go towards going to McDonald's or whatever, trying to get a quick bite to eat. I have to be able to think through a meal plan that is healthy, that will promote good study habits, that will also promote good sleep habits. So I'm kind of curious with you in terms of your food intake and your dieting. Like, practically, what do you do specifically? Do you like run for jog, or what meals do you eat? And then also your sleep pattern, how do you all plan that out? Because I think, forgive me for saying this, but a college person, their prerogative is whatever goes type of thing. And I know that all too well, being in college and then also being an educator, just kind of seeing the general view of it. I'm kind of curious to know what you think and what your thoughts are on your, like, the structure of how you put everything together.
Yeah, I guess it's not really common practice for college students to live in this way, and I wasn't either. I wasn't living this way.
Mm,
Is because I wanted to become better and practiced. And I think it's through trial and error and personal experimentation is something that I've been doing for quite a while.
mm,
Uh, Regarding like 30-day challenges, I've been like writing in journals, meditation. I think
mm,
all of those things people should try and see if it works for them. Uh, as for eating wise, a lot of people, I usually eat on stream. I eat In the morning, I eat Greek plain yogurt as well as oats mixed with banana. It's pretty
Nice.
delicious and very nutritious in protein.
Yeah.
As for lunch, I get some Costco salads. So I stack
Okay.
them up usually on Sunday, and I put Costco salad, and then I put like a scoop of mashed potato salad mix, and yeah, that's usually my lunch. And afterwards, I try to eat something like a quick snack before going on a run,
Hmm.
or I make something afterwards.
Yeah.
Uh, but it differs. For dinners, I try to go a little bit light because I'm gonna be sleeping soon. And as for sleep, I really, really recommend, like for every single person that comes to my stream or just anyone
Hmm.
that I know, I try to really encourage them to get a good sleep pattern. I like you can't for as for sleep, you can't just sleep for 6 hours and say, "Oh, I'm gonna sleep 10 hours tomorrow." It doesn't work like that. It's not like
Yeah.
a depth cycle.
Yeah.
Sleep, you need it, and if you're not getting it, you're definitely gonna see decreases. I was
Hmm.
actually listening to Matthew Walker, I think he's the no, yeah, Matthew Walker, the the author of Why We Sleep, and he there's a lot of gems in that book that I need to revisit. And he talks about how once they for SAT, which is a standardized exam, they saw a top 10% went from 1100 to 1500 just by lightening the school time by an hour. So if you had to go to school at 7:50, they changed it to 8:50, and they saw a dramatic increase in standardized
Hmm.
exams, which is
Yeah.
incredible. 1100 and 1500 is unrivaled.
Hmm.
So I really value sleeping like way more now, also because I need to set a good example, right? So I try to sleep at least 7 to 8. It's usually around 7:30, close to 8.
Yeah.
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 I really like living a routine life because if not, there's too much distractions, too
Yeah.
many room for error in life. And this might not resonate with everybody, but it's something that people should be maybe interested in trying out.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, definitely. Imperfect Mammal has a question: how to build habits. Now, this may have already been answered, but just in case, if there was anything left out, how to build habits and routines to study for long hours. And we kind of did cover that, but practically in the sense, if I may piggyback off that question, how do you build up the way that you build up? Because I think you started slow, so if you
Right.
can maybe expand on that.
Yeah. So James has a I feel like I'm like a big fan, and I really am because he gives some really good insights about his book recommendations, which is Atomic Habits, Deep Work, and Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. I listened to all three audiobooks before like watching his channel, but revisiting it in that order really kind of structured, oh, if I really take some key principles, which is doing something consistently, and deep work, which is trying to work for long hours. Deep work wasn't really a term before Cal Newport introduced it, and I feel like a lot of us have like a belief of what that is. Like we knew of deep work, but we didn't know until he created the term.
Mm,
And the term deep work for me means constantly trying to increase your focus. And I'm still at the beginning stages. Like you see me like doing 12-hour streams, but not all of it is perfect. Mostly it's not because I have regard like outside external distractions like my phone that I've been able to kind of overcome. I
mm,
have a lot of thoughts. We have, I think, around 2,000 thoughts an hour, and we need to filter through all of that. That's
mm.
insane.
Yeah.
And for people who get to that state of true focus, that's like incredible. That's a skill they've unlocked and trained for. That's something that there's nothing I'm gonna say that's gonna be like, okay, I got it.
Mm,
I'm gonna study for like 10 hours. No, it's not. That's
right.
not how it works. You gotta put in the time and you gotta train, because no matter how talented or skilled, like no matter how talented you are, if you don't give it the time to kind of cultivate and grow, then I think it's just wasted potential. So,
Mm,
and for me, that resonated with me personally because I really had a fixed mindset. I'm a big comparing dude. I say I don't want to. Nobody does, right? But
Mm.
it's inherent in any social media. You look at how other people are doing way better.
Yeah.
You see in terms of academic achievement, our mind is kind of forced to play games. And even for me, I have like a financial incentive for why I go to college and why I do work. Of course, I want to escape that, but it's inherent because it's kind of our society is kind of constructed by that.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't know. That was kind of quite off tangent. Sorry. So
No, that's
my
fine.
answer would be just be consistent with it, and
Hmm.
you need to try it yourself. You gotta just go and again, as I said, know your boundaries and push a little bit harder and harder. There's
Mm.
nothing anyone could tell you rather than you doing it yourself. And
Well,
that
and
might not be the answer he wants.
oh
Very
no, and
imperfect.
I think it's a great answer. By the way, it's a and thank you for expanding on it a little bit because we did talk about it a little bit, but thank you for humoring the question. And we have another question in Fires Man. Yeah, says since you had a mixed upbringing, what about your identity? How do you define it, etc.?
Yeah. So that's a great question because I didn't really know if I was Korean or American growing up because I was in this
Mm,
half and half, right? I
mm,
was born in America and but lived majority like more than half my life in South Korea. But I think I really like America for its for the way it was constructed. I really value how it has freedom and it provides me opportunities where if I was in any different country, I might not have the opportunity to do so.
mm,
So like second chances, receiving failures, but it gives you opportunity, right? Like I feel like that American freedom is based upon it's okay no matter how hard you try, you might fail, but hey, your son or your daughter has the opportunity to grow, and
mm,
that belief what makes America like super unique, and I'm really thankful for that, as well as being in South Korea. Like I was born in South Korea, not North Korea, right? And they're two very very diverse countries because in
mm,
North Korea you make 1/10 of the income of what a South Korean laborer would make, and they don't even have like access to electricity unless you're a high profile person.
mm.
So if I was born in any other country, would I be here? Most likely not. Would I have the thoughts? So I feel like what I'm trying to say is I have a lot of luck that's played, and my identity is tied with kind of inherent environment. But I
Mm.
have those opportunities that I could. It's what makes it unique is that I'm able to take those opportunities that's given.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
I
thank
value
you.
both identity, both as a South Korean as well as an American.
Mm. Uh, Fatima, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Question is, I always start with things, but the thing is, I'm not able to achieve is consistency. How do you remain consistent? I mean, that's there is a slight difference with just saying be consistent, but also how do you remain consistent? That's a great question. Thank you so much for the question.
Right. To be frankly honest, I struggle with it a lot. So
Mm,
I'm not gonna give you a straight on answer because even earlier I was streaming, and my mind was making justifications, right? It was like, dude, man, look at the weather outside, man. Look at the window, Jin. Look at how nice it looks. I know you want to go outside. So I create these fantasies that of like what I could be doing, right? That's the alternative choice that we could make. In economics, it's called like opportunity cost. What's the opportunity cost of me being in this position studying if I could enjoy other fruits of life?
mm,
So to answer your question, it's just you understanding what your drive is. Your goal has to be something stronger that you could always bring back forward. So for me, my goal is leaving an impact on as many people as I can before I die, as well as achieving my personal goals, which is graduating and making my family proud, and
mm,
especially my mom. My mom sacrificed. We don't even have a home. Like we live on a. Like, this is more finance related, and I don't really mind opening too much.
mm-hmm,
So I live on like a rent to rent basis,
mm-hmm,
but my mom had opportunities to buy a house in South Korea, but she didn't because she cared so much about my education and my brother's education that she invests a lot of her money in ensuring that. And I didn't recognize that growing up, but now I'm more aware of how moms, like how my mom personally is self-sacrificing, and
Mm-hmm.
she needs to be rewarded for all her duties because she truly is a great mom for me.
Mm-hmm.
So have a drive that's super strong that you could always recall back to, and you have to understand that once you defeat this, the greater the resistance, the greater the your journey will be. The more
Mm-hmm.
struggles you have, you have adopted the tools so that you could battle another one. So every day I feel like it's like a battle day. You have to equip your tools and you got to sharpen that sword. And once you go in a battle that's really hard, you will come out with the tools that's even a sharper sword to attack on the next day. And there's no ending, and that's something that I find really hard to believe. But there truly is no ending in life, right? There is no golden day where you just everything it's like a happy ending. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
you could enjoy that along the process, but there is no true ending. It's just life has inherently suffering, and life is. That's what like that's how Buddhism like really appeals to me, even though I was a grown up Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, what I'm trying to say is I struggle with it. I bet a lot of other people do. If they're not, they're probably BSing. And just be honest with yourself, and it's okay. Like I myself have fell into that. I wasn't consistent. I never was, and I still will probably deal with that. But as long as I know that I want to become a better person, and I will keep on trying, and that that sense of failure also really pushes me because I don't want to experience failure again with failing to be consistent. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe those could be maybe some fuel inside your tool shed to keep you going.
Mm. Yeah. I love the analogy. Like I actually remember when it was my first year in college, my academic advisor said, after this huge line of questioning and this huge line of basically downloading me with all this like information about what classes I need to take, the examinations that are coming up, all that stuff. She said, "How are you feeling? Do you feel overwhelmed?" I'm like, "Absolutely, I feel super overwhelmed." And she's like, "Well, that's actually good." And I was like, "Why is that good? Being overwhelmed is not good." She's like, "Well, being overwhelmed is an opportunity for growth." And I think this is what you're trying. This is exactly what you're conveying is this is a way for you to overcome something, put in the hard work that you need to, and then progressively get better and better. And in your case, you want to leave a legacy of being able to be not only someone who cares for people and serves people, but helps people in the best way possible. And I think what I'm seeing also is the care you have for your family, the care that you have for your little brother and for your mother. And I wonder, I ask this question a little hesitantly, but I wonder, are you not only doing this for yourself, but trying to go through college and be successful, but are you doing this for your family? Because that to me is what seems to stick out quite a bit.
Yeah, I want to tell my little brother like I don't have it all figured out. And I came from somewhere where I think a lot of people, I value resonance, like that relatability. And for me, that was James. And I wish I could be that person for someone else on their recommended to start their journey. And
Mm,
for me to do something that's not abnormal maybe creates interest because a lot of people that find me, they don't look for me particularly. They come across it
mm,
and they feel kind of fuel to push it. And I want to tell my brother that if I could do this, think about what you can do. And yeah, he's going through a really like harsh stage in his life, but I really want to try it, and I know he will become a great human being.
mm.
And yeah, that's all.
Yeah, and I could definitely see the love you have for your family. I mean, it definitely hits. it hits really hard. And I think we can all relate to this because we all care for our
Yeah,
families. We all have this connection. So
right.
thank you for sharing that, by the way, and being open and honest with that. Not a lot of people are open and honest about, that, especially on a first meeting. So I appreciate you saying that. We have another question. I believe it's Ikra. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. What was that motivated James to break through his previous habits slash addictions in his life, other than the streams of other people? I don't know if I'm actually understanding the question very well, but I think it's what motivated you through James. I could be wrong.
Okay. Yeah. I think what resonated, I value authenticity, and for me, why I didn't want to take this path was because I always compared myself, and I justified in high school that there's always going to be, no matter how hard I try, there's going to be people that are better than me. And therefore, I kind of didn't want to do academics. To be honest, I didn't even want to go to college. And that doesn't make sense, like coming out of my mouth, but I really didn't.
Mm,
I didn't have a passion. I didn't know. I didn't have a purpose of waking up. I was just doing it for the sake of it. But for what I saw in James was maybe like that same resonance. He didn't, maybe not socially successful, but still he found something
mm,
that fueled him to go on to create this. And he left impact on so many different people, and he still is.
mhm,
He's a true role model for me of
mhm,
what people need to do. And people, not like a lot of people, even myself, stated, yeah, he's different. He has some special ability, but it truly isn't. I value hard work and being rewarded through that. Not because of like you have an advantage because you're smarter, you know more terms, or because of your academic success. It's how much hard work you put in because you want to, not
mm,
because you have the ability and you are able to, but out of your own will, even knowing that those inherent limitations exist, still going through it, going through the motions, and acting out to try to being someone.
mhm,
And yeah, that, like, I really felt that
mm,
through watching him for hours, as well as through his videos that are very genuine.
mhm. Yeah. We have another question from Brad Pitt. The question for both of us is, how do you stop or slash prevent self sabotaging? That's interesting.
Take it away, Paximus.
Okay, so I'll prime this by saying that I have to be honest, and if you haven't noticed, I have social media, like, I have listed social media everywhere. So the self sabotaging thing, I had to, out of my own volition, decide or choose. I am no longer going to be addicted to this. That is a phone, right? I am no longer going to be addicted to all these things. I had to consciously decide how to stop all that. I had to make practical ways to do that. So I'm going to be honest with you. And for those of you who are listening, this is my studio now. This is not my bedroom. It's a studio room, because my bedroom is now, which it looks different. It's not your typical garage. It's now in the back house. So I had to actually distance myself from all the things that are drawing me, like, to keep working or to keep, on social media. I had to distance myself. I had to actually go through the steps of removing myself from a toxic area, a toxic place where I thought, man, I'm just going to keep working. I'm just going to keep going on social media. I'm doing this to myself, and I have nobody to blame but myself. So I had to remove myself from that temptation of getting into social media or anything that would uh, deter me from being productive in life. And so I moved myself back there. I'm eating healthy. I'm sleeping better. I'm making conscious decisions of, okay, how's this going to affect my schedule? How's this going to affect everything that I do and say? If I really truly want to help people, I need to help myself first and
Yeah.
deal with that. all the cobwebs that are in there and then decide how to help other people. I can't do it from a place of like, well, you guys need to do this, you guys need to do that, and then be very hypocritical and eat the wrong foods, not exercise, all those things. And with social media, that was my biggest addiction. Social media, I would look at it for hours. And being a study streamer, I would be so drawn to this. I would be so stuck to it that I had to decide, okay, now is enough. It's just enough. I have to get away from this. This is toxic. There's no point, honestly, in staying in social media. I think I'd rather connect with people in living color, and which is why I do what I do. I love connecting with other people, and I think you have to make that conscious decision that out of your own volition to decide to stop, and whatever method you need to do in order to remove yourself from that toxic situation, you just need to do it. So that's what I would say.
I resonate you with 100%. What you said was truly a gem. There is no true validity, like no matter in terms of likes, of popularity. It's
Mm,
just a popularity contest, and you really need to understand that, like, what you you have to really be careful of what you consume, because
yeah.
comparison kind of inherently is lied within comparison. If, like, for me, I was watching a lot. There was times where I would go to sleep at 3 a.m. and I was just clicking YouTube
Same.
video after the next one, and I was like,
Yeah.
dude, I can't stop, man. This is crazy. I can't, because it's so easy to do. And I was genuinely so tired. I was sleep deprived, but I was just going on in this run of just
Yeah.
watching, consuming, and consuming, consuming after consuming. And that really does play a big factor.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and I also really liked what you said regarding having a different environment. For me as well, I changed my environment, I think once, but even that was like a big change for me. And having that set, having like a place where you understand that this is where I need to do work. This, like,
Yeah.
having a separate mind, or having that switch in your queue. That's a common thing that you see in a lot of like habit self-development books. There has to be a queue where you could switch it, and you are in that zone, that place of
Mhm.
yourself that you could find only in yourself.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I found that for me. And going back to the question of self-sabotage, uh, it would be just being more aware of your life, being aware, because I wasn't aware that I was watching 3 a.m. And I'm reflecting back after everything I did. I could reflect back on what I did. So when you live out your life, live with consciousness. And I know that's really hard. Maybe if you're a kid, you're not going to. You have to go through the hard motions of failures like
Mhm.
everyone else does. But
Yeah.
you have to have that, I guess, intuition, and uh, that drive to become better, because
Mm.
it will create you to do actions. And once you overcome those personal victories, you will be able to navigate the life kind of in a better way.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I think so.
agree. Absolutely. We're getting close to our time ending here. I will take maybe a couple questions if we can
Okay.
just kind of go through them a little bit quicker. A question from Misha is: as people, we always feel the need to switch things up. Our brains always need new
Yeah.
stimulation. Since you need to have a very fixed routine, how do you cope with this?
Yeah. So I really like what Misha said about stimulation. That's something I encourage when we get really bored and there's that point of diminishing returns, right?
Mm,
Like experience that a lot, and all of my streams are not like 100% efficiency, maybe like 50%. There's always 50% left, 40. There's a 60%, 60 to 40 rule actually Goggins talks about. When you reach that 60%, you still have 40% in the tank. And for me, that is that, like, I put I put limits on myself, and for me to kind of change that, I need to stimulate my brain.
mm-hmm,
So even when I do my studies, I try to look at it in different perspectives. So pretend if I'm doing a reading on literature, I might take notes on the side, or I might start highlighting, or I might switch between the two to trick my brain into stimulation.
Mm.
I don't know if that answered the question. Was it about it, I I was so gravitated by the word stimulation. What was that?
So I mean, the question is, since you need to have a very fixed routine, how do you cope with this? And
Mm,
yeah, I think it goes in line with what you were saying. But yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I would say just stimulating my brain in even these sessions that will help me stimulate like my life as a general. So
Hmm.
this routine life for me, I don't think it's everybody could train to live this way, and I'm quite comfortable with it as of now, even though I every day I struggle with it.
Mm, yeah. So we'll take one more
Okay.
question, and I'm just trying to look through here in case I missed something. Just to kind of cap our time here. Oh, and we'll end with this question right here. Let me see if I can put it up on the screen. So the question is, I have noticed one thing with me that I'm scared of building a routine. That's a very interesting way to think about it, but I never thought of it. As it as it scares me that my life would become boring. Any thoughts on that?
You have to become, you have to enjoy boredom. It in any aspect, like you see a lot, our life is filled by distractions, right? If we go
Mm-hmm.
to, like, I was in Subway, like getting a sandwich, and I see people lined up and they can't even, while they're ordering, they're on their phones, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy that we can't, we're kind of like cyborgs now. We're androids, living
Mm,
androids, because without, even our computer, like half of our times, half of our on our life, it's spent on screens, I feel like. So you have to be okay with boredom, and that might not be something that you might gravitate towards, and that's fine. But if your goal aligns and it's super strong, then you need to take this path for your own benefit. And
yeah.
also practice, maybe start by doing 10-minute, 20-minute meditation. That will teach a lot about yourself. We have like the self image of ourselves, and I do too, and it's very wrong, it's very egotistical.
Mm,
But you have to truly know, like, oh, who are you? I may say like things, I want to say things that I practice, and I try to be really careful with that, because sometimes if I say things that I just preach, then that just I, there's no value in that because I'm not practicing it.
mm-hmm.
So you have to acknowledge that boredom is just inherent, and meditation for me, that taught me how less focused I am as a person. And I think everybody struggles with it. They're not focusing 100% of their times, because we have to be aware, and our brains are kind of designed to be aware of like our surroundings and adapting.
Mm-hmm.
So be understanding, know where your boundaries are. I feel like that's a common theme, and just branch out and slowly take it one inch by inch, and you'll get there. You'll do great. But just have that in the back of your mind that you need to be okay, and you need to take on challenges in your life.
Absolutely. Woojin, I want to
Yeah.
thank you so much for this time. I really valued this conversation. I thought it was much deeper than I was expecting, and I really, really do value your thoughts and your perspective on this. So thank you so much for taking some time to just kind of hang out with me and just talk a little bit. I really do appreciate it, and I know that the people here who are supporting you, they appreciate that as well. They feel like they can connect with you, which is part of what we're trying to do here, is connect with each other and get to know each other a little bit better. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you so much for Paximus to providing this opportunity and your goal. I really, really enjoy what you are doing for the community and your purpose. I guess a question for you, because you didn't
Sure.
have too much chances, which I wanted. I actually have like a lot of questions that I wanted to ask
Uh-huh.
about, maybe like insecurities, goal in life, philosophy on life, and death.
Wow, that's a
But I
lot.
guess the biggest thing that I would ask is, yeah, but let's end up the question with, what is your meaning in life, would you say?
Hmm. Wow, that that's a pretty deep question, to be honest. So
Okay.
I actually do relate with you in your story a little bit about how you grew up as a Christian. You mentioned that you grew up as a Christian. I myself, I am Christian. I think my goal and my meaning in life is to point people to my God, my Savior, who is Jesus. That is my mission in life. That is the meaning of why I was made. I truly value people. I truly love people, and I care for people, and which is why I do what I do. I try and connect with others. I try and be the best, if you will, a person of leadership or role model, whichever way you want to spin it, to point people in his direction, in because he makes my life better. He's given me so many blessings. He's given me so many things that I don't deserve. And quite honestly, that's why I care so deeply about people, because I want people to know how he's changed my life. And so anyways, all that to say is that my meaning in life, I believe, is to point others to Christ. That is my personal relationship with Jesus. I care deeply about him and about people, and that's what I do.
Thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate each and every one of you for, stopping by and being part of this podcast. If you haven't done so already, I would really love for you guys to subscribe to Woojin. In case you don't know, his information is in the description below. We've had just an awesome opportunity to get to know Woojin, and I'm looking forward to hopefully more conversations in the future. Whether it's a podcast or even through Discord or on his live stream, whichever the platform may be, I'm really, really looking forward to it. And I love the fact that we were able to go deep in this conversation. This was very refreshing for me, and I really do appreciate you. All right, guys. Well, thank you again so much for being here. It's so awesome to have you guys here. If you haven't done so already, I would love for you to hit the subscribe button for my channel and hit the like. But until then, until next time, remember, be kind and rewind. Have a good night. See you later. Hadouken!